He thought he had found the love of his life, but bringing her from Dubai to Berlin turned his dream into a nightmare. What she did next shocked everyone and exposed a secret crime network. You won't believe how deep this love scam goes. Ethan Cole had always believed that love would walk into his life naturally, but nothing about meeting Amal felt ordinary. They connected through a travel forum where Ethan had posted photos from a recent trip to Dubai. Amal commented with warmth and curiosity, and their exchange quickly shifted from casual messages to long, thoughtful conversations. She spoke about her dreams, her desire for a fresh start, and her hope to build a life filled with security and stability. Ethan was drawn to her gentle tone and the consistency with which she showed interest in his routine, ambitions, and family. Over the next few months, their connection grew stronger. Amal sent short videos of her daily life in Dubai, often filming from quiet cafes or sunlit balconies overlooking the city. Ethan felt included in her world, and he began to picture a future that seemed more realistic than anything he had imagined before. Eventually, they started planning to meet in person. Amal explained that she was struggling with a restrictive situation at home, making travel difficult. Ethan offered to handle the arrangements, believing he was helping someone he deeply cared about. He felt a sense of purpose in supporting her, convinced that their connection was rare and worth every effort. As the departure date approached, Ethan filled his days with preparation. He cleaned his apartment, planned small surprises, and imagined the moment he would see Amal in person for the first time. He believed he was bringing home a partner, unaware that he was opening the door to a future filled with hidden truths, unexpected danger, and a story that would shake his entire life in ways he could never predict. Amal's arrival in Berlin felt like the beginning of a beautiful new chapter for Ethan. When she stepped out of the airport, her presence appeared calm and grateful, and Ethan felt relieved that the months of waiting were finally over. He guided her through the bustling terminal, noticing how she quietly observed everything around her, as if absorbing every detail of her new environment. Berlin's cold winter air contrasted sharply with the warmth of Dubai, yet Amal seemed eager to adapt. Ethan brought her to his apartment, a modest but comfortable space filled with soft lighting and neatly arranged belongings. Amal complimented the view, explored each room with curiosity, and placed her luggage in the guest bedroom before settling in. Over the next few days, she adjusted to the city's rhythm with surprising ease. She learned train routes, enjoyed street markets, and took long walks along the Spree River. Ethan introduced her to neighbors, co-workers, and family members through video calls. Everyone saw a woman who appeared polite, humble, and grateful. To Ethan, this validated his decision to bring her to Berlin. He believed their relationship was strengthening, and he began imagining a shared future filled with stability and affection. However, Amal's behavior soon shifted in subtle ways. She spent long nights awake, scrolling through her phone with intense focus. She locked her device, kept it face down, and turned away whenever Ethan approached. She began taking unexplained trips into the city, sometimes leaving early in the morning and returning late without offering reasons. Ethan noticed these changes but tried to remain understanding, assuming she was adjusting to the unfamiliar environment. He reassured himself that relocation was stressful, unaware that these early signs marked the beginning of a much darker and more complicated reality he had yet to uncover. The first request came casually, almost harmlessly. Amal mentioned needing a small amount of money to help her family back in Dubai with an unexpected bill. Ethan didn't think twice. He transferred the amount immediately, feeling it was a simple act of support. Amal thanked him warmly, which eased any concern he had. It felt natural to help someone he cared for, especially someone trying to adjust to a completely new life in Berlin. But within a week, another request followed. This time it was slightly larger. Amal explained that she needed to cover a delayed payment from her previous job and insisted it was temporary. Ethan hesitated but convinced himself it was reasonable. She was far from home, unable to access certain accounts, and still navigating the transition. Again, he agreed. Soon the requests became more frequent. Each came with a different explanation: a family emergency, a medical need, a document issue, or a sudden expense she had forgotten to mention earlier. The amounts grew steadily, pushing Ethan into financial discomfort. His savings began shrinking faster than he expected, yet he struggled to refuse her. Amal always appeared stressed when asking, as if burdened by problems she claimed she didn't want to share. Gradually, Ethan noticed a pattern. Amal never showed evidence of these emergencies. She never mentioned repaying him. Instead, she would withdraw money quickly and return home distant and distracted. Her fondness toward him had faded, replaced by a coldness that left Ethan feeling strangely isolated in his own relationship. Still, Ethan avoided confrontation. He reminded himself that love required patience and understanding. But beneath his efforts to stay supportive, a quiet unease settled in. Something about her financial behavior didn't add up, and each new request pushed him closer to a truth he was not yet ready to face. Amal's behavior shifted more dramatically as weeks passed, creating an atmosphere Ethan could no longer ignore. She spent long hours locked inside the guest bedroom, emerging only when necessary. Her once warm presence faded into a distant, guarded energy. Ethan noticed how she clutched her phone tightly, never leaving it unattended, and switched between multiple SIM cards that she kept hidden inside small plastic sleeves. Each time the phone rang, she walked to a far corner of the apartment, lowering her voice until it became nothing more than a faint murmur. Her absences grew more frequent and unexplained. She left early in the mornings, dressed carefully, and returned late at night with no details about where she had been. Sometimes she arrived with a lingering nervousness, checking the windows before settling down. Other times she seemed distracted, scrolling through encrypted apps with intense focus. Around the apartment, Ethan began seeing things that didn't belong to either of them. Sealed envelopes with unfamiliar symbols, small packages delivered under different names, and receipts for items he had never seen her use. She started storing her belongings in locked drawers, and whenever Ethan passed by, she watched him closely, as if afraid he might uncover something. The distance between them grew in silence. Their conversations became short and superficial, and her affection nearly disappeared. Ethan felt like a guest in his own home, observing a stranger who moved with calculated caution. He sensed that something far more complex was unfolding behind her calm exterior. Despite the unease tightening around him, Ethan hesitated to act. He feared pushing her away, feared discovering a truth that might dismantle everything he believed about their relationship. Yet every change in her behavior signaled that the woman he brought from Dubai was not the woman living under his roof now. One evening, while Amal was out, Ethan's curiosity and unease reached a tipping point. He remembered the small, locked cabinet in the corner of the bedroom that she rarely touched. Something about the way she guarded it nagged at him, and he realized he needed to see what she was hiding. Carefully, he moved the cabinet aside and discovered a small black travel bag tucked behind it. It was unassuming, but its presence in the apartment made his heart race. Inside the bag, Ethan found a collection of items that immediately shattered his sense of trust. There were multiple German ID cards, each bearing Amal's photograph, but displaying completely different names. Alongside these were several bank cards, some with small amounts of cash still inside, others linked to accounts he had never heard of. The bag also contained receipts, tiny notebooks filled with numbers, and a detailed list of wealthy Berlin businessmen with notes next to each name. Ethan's mind raced as he pieced together what he was seeing. Every request for money, every secretive trip, and every late-night conversation now took on a new, sinister meaning. The woman he had believed to be his partner was someone entirely different, someone capable of manipulation and deception on a scale he could barely imagine. A deep sense of fear settled over him. He realized he was not just dealing with small lies or hidden habits. He had unknowingly allowed a stranger with calculated intentions into his home. The carefully constructed life he had imagined with Amal now felt like a fragile illusion, ready to collapse. In that moment, Ethan understood that uncovering the contents of the black travel bag was only the beginning. The reality he was about to face would be far darker and more dangerous than he could have ever anticipated. Ethan's discovery of the hidden bag marked the beginning of a terrifying realization. He spent hours researching the names, addresses, and account numbers written in Amal's notebooks. To his shock, many of them were linked to ongoing fraud reports and complaints filed across Berlin. Victims described a pattern eerily similar to what he had experienced. Women arriving from abroad, quickly forming intimate relationships, requesting money, and then disappearing without a trace. The details matched Amal's movements almost exactly. Ethan reached out discreetly to local authorities, providing them with the IDs, bank cards, and lists he had found. As he dug deeper, he uncovered online forums where victims shared warnings about romance scams. Patterns emerged: long-distance relationships, sudden relocation, fabricated emergencies, and careful manipulation. It became clear that Amal wasn't working alone. She was part of an organized criminal network operating across multiple European cities. Each report he read left him more unsettled. Some victims had lost thousands of euros, while others were still recovering emotionally from the betrayal. The stories all described a similar strategy. The target is made to feel special, emotionally invested, and compelled to help financially. Only after relocation does the scam fully reveal itself, and by then, the perpetrators often vanish, leaving behind shattered trust and empty accounts. Ethan began to understand the scale of what he was facing. Amal was not a single con artist. She was a highly trained operative in a larger operation designed to exploit trust and love. The realization made him feel both furious and terrified. He had invited a criminal into his home without ever knowing it. The woman he believed he loved was not just deceiving him emotionally. She was systematically exploiting him as part of a much larger, dangerous network that spanned countries. The reality of the situation was more chilling than anything Ethan had imagined. Ethan knew he needed evidence before taking any action. Confronting Amal without proof could put him in immediate danger, and he suspected she was far more cunning than he had first realized. He discreetly installed small security cameras around the apartment, focusing on areas she frequented and the hallway leading to the front door. Every movement, every interaction with her phone, and every package she received became part of his silent investigation. What he captured was alarming. Amal frequently received late-night calls from unknown numbers, always using a hushed voice and gestures that suggested secrecy. She met strangers in cafes, often sitting outside the establishment, glancing at her surroundings as if wary of being followed. Ethan noted that she carried multiple handbags and wallets, sometimes switching them mid-journey. These items were later stored carefully in the apartment, along with stacks of documents that made no sense at the time. He also discovered patterns in her financial behavior. Amal withdrew large sums from different bank accounts using cards Ethan had never seen. She transferred money to foreign accounts, often during odd hours, and her coding in small notebooks suggested a meticulous record of transactions, names, and addresses. Ethan realized these were not random actions, but deliberate, organized operations. Despite the mounting evidence, Ethan continued to maintain the appearance of normalcy, knowing that any sudden confrontation could trigger a dangerous reaction. Each day he spent watching her was filled with anxiety and a growing sense of betrayal. The woman he had invited into his life and home was systematically exploiting his trust. With every recorded action, he saw the full scope of her intelligence, manipulation, and the calculated nature of the scam, confirming that Amal was a professional and that his life had been intricately entangled in a web of deceit he could barely comprehend. The stormy night brought an unsettling tension to Ethan's apartment. The wind rattled the windows, and shadows danced across the walls, mirroring the unease in his chest. Amal returned home unexpectedly early, her coat soaked, and her movements unusually brisk. She paused at the door, glancing around the apartment as if sensing something had changed. Ethan felt a jolt of fear. He knew she had discovered one of his hidden cameras, and the realization sent a surge of adrenaline through him. Amal's eyes flicked toward him briefly, and then she moved quickly toward the bedroom, grabbing the black travel bag he had once uncovered. Her movements were decisive and urgent, confirming Ethan's worst suspicions. She had been exposed, and now she was acting. Without a word, she left the apartment, slamming the door behind her. Panic gripped Ethan as he watched her disappear into the rain-soaked streets. He immediately contacted the authorities, providing them with all the evidence he had collected over the weeks: photos, videos, bank statements, and detailed notes about her patterns. Hours later, police intercepted a car attempting to leave Berlin. Inside were Amal and two men, all carrying large sums of cash, multiple IDs, and documents linking them to an international love scam operation. The authorities confirmed that the network had been active across multiple European countries, and Amal was one of the central figures. Ethan learned that the operation relied on relocating victims, gaining their trust, and extracting financial resources before disappearing. The realization was devastating. The woman he had invited into his home, whom he had trusted completely, was part of a highly organized criminal enterprise. That night, the world he had built in Berlin crumbled. Fear, betrayal, and relief intertwined as he finally understood the full scope of Amal's deception and the danger he had narrowly escaped. As the investigation progressed, the full extent of Amal's criminal activity began to emerge, and the picture that formed was far more disturbing than Ethan could have imagined. German authorities discovered that Amal had not only targeted him, but had built an elaborate system for deceiving men across multiple countries. Dubai, Qatar, and various European cities were all part of her operational map, each location carefully selected for wealthy or influential targets. The romance was always a tool, a method to lure men into relocating her and providing access to financial resources. Victims' testimonies revealed the same pattern Ethan had unknowingly fallen into. Amal would establish emotional intimacy, painting a picture of a devoted, supportive partner. Once her victims became invested and relocated her, the manipulation intensified. She created emergencies, demanded funds, and siphoned money into accounts designed to be untraceable. Each relationship ended in disappearance or exposure, leaving heartbreak and financial loss in its wake. Investigators also uncovered evidence of her broader network, showing that she operated alongside accomplices who assisted with logistics, falsified documents, and coordinated communications. Amal was not acting impulsively. Every step was premeditated. Her charm, intelligence, and careful planning allowed her to evade detection for years, exploiting the vulnerability and trust of those who believed they had found true love. Ethan realized the truth about the woman he had trusted completely. She had never intended a genuine future with him. Berlin was simply one stop on her path, a strategic point in a sophisticated, long-running operation. The revelation was crushing, yet it also provided a sense of clarity. He understood that the betrayal was not personal, it was professional, calculated, and systemic. What he had endured was part of a much larger story, one that authorities were now piecing together to finally dismantle the network that had manipulated so many lives. Amal's arrest marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, though the aftermath was far from simple. German authorities charged her and her accomplices with fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes spanning several countries. The evidence Ethan had carefully gathered became crucial in building a strong case against the network. His cooperation helped investigators connect her activities across borders and identify other victims who had been silently suffering for years. For Ethan, the relief of seeing justice take shape was mixed with lingering emotional turmoil. The woman he had loved, trusted, and invited into his home had been deceiving him from the start. The betrayal cut deeply, leaving scars that money or legal resolution could never fully heal. He struggled to reconcile the affection he once felt with the reality of her manipulation and exploitation. Each memory of their time together carried the weight of betrayal, forcing him to question his judgment and the vulnerabilities that had allowed the scam to unfold. Slowly, Ethan began rebuilding his life. He focused on restoring his financial security, reconnecting with friends and family, and reclaiming his sense of safety. Therapy helped him process the emotional trauma, and over time, he found a cautious sense of trust in himself and others again. The story of Amal's deception and the elaborate network she belonged to shocked Berlin and captured international attention. It became a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of online romance scams and the ease with which trust can be manipulated. Ethan's experience served as a warning to others. Even in a world of love and connection, vigilance is essential. The ordeal left him forever changed, but he emerged with a renewed awareness of human complexity, resilience, and the importance of protecting one's heart and life from unseen threats.